I have no way of in any way confirming whether or not a prayer has been answered. And neither does anybody else in the history of the world, as far as I can tell. So when I ask you, how can you confirm that a prayer was answered? And you're like, I'm just convinced, and I think you'd be convinced too. You shouldn't make assumptions about what I'd be convinced of, because I run on the operation of skepticism as a foundation for epistemology, and you don't.
And Grant, I have a question. If I came to you and I said, hey, here's these things that I prayed for and I didn't get them answered, would you say that that's good evidence that a God doesn't exist?
No, I don't think it works that way. I mean, we don't.
Why does it work? Why does it work your way? So, Grant, why does it work your way and not my way?
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for supporting the channel. As some of you know, the majority of my content on this channel is funded by patrons at patreon.com/atheistdebates. But all of the content is available for free to all of you. If you're able to become a patron, I appreciate the support. But this clip is not patron supported. It's from a call we took recently on the line. I'll be posting more clips like this, probably with this intro attached to all of them, especially as we near 200,000 subscribers here. So whether you're a patron, a YouTube subscriber, or just someone who views and comments, likes, and subscribes, thank you and enjoy.
First of all, we got Grant calling in from Indiana. Grant's a theist, pronouns are he, him, wants to present a cumulative case for why Grant's a theist. How long is the cumulative case? Because I think we might want to focus on like the best elements first to see where it goes.
Hi, it's not super long. I guess it just depends on, what you would want to talk about the most. I am a Christian, so I guess I have like reasons that I think if there's a God, that it would be the Christian God. And then I guess I also just have reasons why I think there is a God at all.
Nice.
Well, I guess go for it. I mean, by the way, Grant, I guarantee you we are going to interrupt, but the only reason we do is for clarity, so that we can understand or redirect, or so you don't make 35 points and then, oh, they didn't answer numbers 1 through 5 or the odd ones, and therefore it's over. I just want to have a good conversation and talk. So you're talking about the Christian God.
Yeah.
What reason do you have for what's, I guess, your primary reason for thinking that a God exists and that it's that one?
So I think they're kind of separate. I don't think there's any one proof that's like there's definitely a God and that God is at the same time definitely the Christian God. But I guess one of the biggest reasons I think there's a God at all is, I guess, a lot of the common Christian arguments. So, and not all of these lead necessarily directly to like a personal God, but I feel like they do lead to something supernatural or just outside of naturalism and materialism. So that would be like the contingency argument, the moral argument, the fine-tuning argument, and I guess like a form of the fine-tuning argument that I find convincing for myself is, I guess, just the inherent sort of apparent design of the universe, down to like the atomic level. Just the way, at the smallest level that we can see, the fact that atoms are able to bond with each other, and that they have this potential to function and work together. I guess that's sort of a fine-tuning argument, like,
Are you saying that the fact that atoms bond violates some natural principle?
No, I wouldn't say it violates a natural principle. I would say that the fact that it is a natural principle is sort of evidence for design, or at least purpose.
Well, how do you determine that? Because, like, as far as I know, I'm not a chemist, but I'm not a physicist. But the natural laws governing this, they don't. I don't know how you can look at those and say, "Ooh, those had to be created or instantiated by some intelligence." What's the justification for that?
Well, so I guess it's sort of an analogy, is the way I understand it. So Okay, I guess, what do you believe about the origin of the universe?
I don't
Big Bang theory.
have an explanation for the origin of the universe, and as far as I can tell, neither does anyone else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
do
my
you- do
stance
you-
as well. My answer is I don't know about the origin of the universe.
Okay. I'm also like not a scientist, but I mean, do you generally think that it has like the Big Bang theory is the most, I guess, plausible?
That's not the explanation for the origin. That's what we know so far. Then there's things possibly before, during, all of that we don't know.
I would say,
Okay.
I accept that the current Big Bang cosmological model is the one that is best supported by evidence, and is the scientific consensus is that it is the best current model, but it could be wrong and revised or whatever. But I don't see any space in Big Bang cosmology for God.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just explain to you how I've thought of it. I don't know how convincing it will be to you, but this is just sort of where my head goes. Is that atoms exist like sort of at the smallest level in the universe already?
Hang on.
Evolution. Yeah.
When you say at the smallest level, you realize that atoms are also made up of quarks and stuff like that, right?
I know like protons and neutrons and electrons. Sorry. Yeah. Do you know more about that?
Well, there are elementary particles that are smaller than protons and electrons and neutrons at that level, and beyond that, because you've got quarks and muons and things like that. So it may not matter, because it's just when you say at the smallest level.
Well, it's not.
You're talking about atoms, and we already know that to the extent we could divide things into levels, there's also a subatomic level.
Right. Yeah.
Grant, can I ask you? So far, what I'm hearing is a lot of things that you're just not so sure of, or maybe not understanding, or maybe none of us collectively have an answer for yet, and therefore you think maybe that means a God. And to me, that's not a good reason to believe something. You're just filling in a blank, instead of just being open to leaving it blank. Why is the answer not, I need to learn more, or we need to learn more? Why is the answer, therefore, the Christian God?
Well, again, I don't think that this leads directly to the Christian God. I think it maybe just leads to the possibility, maybe the plausibility of just some force outside of natural, what we can see and feel. And
do you worship this God?
I do. I do. Yes. And the reason I
What
think
is it
the
that
Christian
has
God
you
is more
so
because of Jesus.
Right, but my question is, what is it that has you so convinced this is real that you're willing to worship it? And I don't even want to get to the part where if something should ever be worshipped or not. But like, I'm curious for you personally, what is it that has you so convinced? Because you're acting like you're maybe wishy-washy, but then it sounds that you're worshiping it. So you must really think it's real.
My question's on the same thing, because you talked about these things suggest to you the possibility of a God. I don't think they even suggest the possibility of God. I don't think they are strong enough to demonstrate the possibility of a God. But you jumped seemingly from the possibility of God to, yep, I worship it because I know which God's the right one.
Yeah, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that I jumped from this to, obviously I don't know how anyone could rationally jump from that to the Christian God. If you want to know why I personally think am the more convinced than still super skeptical about it, is personal experience.
So when you mention the possibility of God, is it also possible that there's not a God?
I think it's possible. I think the level of organization and apparent sort of purpose or intention
Just
behind
say
matter.
say say
Um,
you're assuming purpose and intention, but the question was,
right.
if you say God's possible, is it also possible that you're wrong, that there's not a God?
Yeah, it is possible that I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it's possible that there's not a God, how would you explain the personal experience that you're crediting to God if it turns out there's not a God? What would your explanation for that be?
Well, my explanation, yeah, it was a crazy coincidence. Crazy coincidence in my life, a crazy coincidence in the lives of people around me. That's how I would
Okay.
explain it.
How do
Which
you
is, I mean,
disprove coincidence then?
you don't. So here's, I guess, the issue that you're raising is, yeah, I don't claim to have knowledge of God or know God and understand that it's the Christian God based purely 100%, like irrefutably on the sort of evidence. What I'm saying is, it requires faith, but I came to the faith through different amounts of evidence.
Okay. Do you have any empirical evidence for God, or is it just all inference?
Could you just, what kind of empirical evidence are you thinking? Like,
I don't know any kind of empirical evidence, because all you've got right now is you look at the universe, and correct any of this is wrong. You look at the universe, and at the atomic level, you see what you view as intention and design. And for you, the most reasonable explanation for the appearance of intention and design is that there's actually a being who intended and designed it, or at least there's possibly this being. And then, without any empirical evidence to support it, you then extrapolate somehow through whatever arguments you've got towards a more specific God. But just sticking with the general God, the appearance of design doesn't on its own confirm design, correct?
I guess it depends. What do you mean the appearance of design? What is that to you?
Well, I'm just saying, if you look at something and it appears to be designed to you, that alone does not mean that it was designed, right?
I mean, what is something that you can look at that appears? Because, like, when I think of something that appears to be designed, it's like a desk, a bed.
Grant. It doesn't
Yes.
matter. It doesn't matter. You're the one that's saying you see the appearance of design. The question is in the abstract,
Yeah.
not the concrete. If you think you see design, is that on its own enough to conclude design? Yes or no?
No. That's why I'm not saying I think the personal.
Which is,
yeah. No.
I don't know why it was so difficult to get you to answer that question. But if the appearance of design,
No, hey,
if the appearance of design is not on its own enough to confirm design, what did you use to confirm design? How did you falsify the proposition to reach the conclusion that it's design?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
No.
Okay. Look, I thought we wanted to have a conversation here, so I'm trying to. I'm a normal person,
your part,
college student, just want to have a conversation.
You have to do your part and actually listen and answer the question that's asked. And if you can't even be bothered to listen to the question that's asked and answer it, such that I have to repeat it multiple times, I'm not the one that's failing on the end of the conversation. So again, if the appearance of design is not enough on its own to confirm design, how did you confirm design?
I didn't confirm. If I had confirmed design, I would have released it to the whole world and everyone would have believed it by now. So
why do you believe there's design if you haven't confirmed it?
Because to me, it seems more plausible that there is design. So that's why I believe it.
Okay. Go ahead, Promise.
I was just going to ask because I think that your personal experience is what you've really honed in on as being your reason for believing, because you just said that you can't demonstrate that there is a designer and all of that. But with your personal experience, it was really interesting to me when you said, yeah, if it was confirmed there wasn't a God, then I would say that that's just coincidence. I really would like to go back to that because why are you so willing then to be like, actually, God, when coincidences do happen all the time? I mean, they happen for me all the time. They happen. That's part of living. We experience coincidences. So why are you so willing to ascribe this to a God that you don't even have the scientific evidence for, like you've said? Why can't you just say, yeah, that probably was just coincidence?
Because it might have not. Because I mean, you haven't disproved God. There is no. As
We
far as
also
I know,
haven't
there's no way.
disproven we also haven't disproven that it was like a, leprechaun jumping out of your cereal box from your closet that went and set the whole thing up for you. So do we believe every single thing,
Right.
or do we believe things that we have a really good
The
reason
coincidence.
to believe?
So the coincidence. The thing that I would have described as a coincidence to me is it was an answered prayer that was kind of weird. So it wouldn't.
how do you
It's
know
either
it was answered?
explained. What?
How do you know a prayer was answered?
So I don't know 100%, but if you had this experience, I think that you would come to the same conclusion, or at least be a little bit more open to the same conclusion.
I'll bet you're wrong.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
I have no way of in any way confirming whether or not a prayer has been answered. And neither does anybody else in the history of the world, as far as I can tell. So when I ask you, how can you confirm that a prayer was answered? And you're like, I'm just convinced, and I think you'd be convinced too. You shouldn't make assumptions about what I'd be convinced of, because I run on the operation of skepticism as a foundation for epistemology, and you don't.
You're right.
And Grant, I have a question. If I came to you and I said, hey, here's these things that I prayed for and I didn't get them answered, would you say that that's good evidence that a God doesn't exist?
No, I don't think it works that way. I mean, we don't.
Why does it work? Why does it work your way?
Right.
So, Grant, why does it work your way and not my way?
Well, when I pray things and I don't get an answer, it still doesn't work for me. It's not okay. I guess you would call that the absence of evidence. I mean, that's not. If I text someone something and they don't respond, that doesn't mean they didn't get my message necessarily.
Grant, what percentage of your prayers?
If they do respond, it's more likely that they saw it than that they didn't.
What response have you confirmed?
So you're asking me if I confirmed it? I'm sorry, I can't scientifically confirm it. That's why it is faith, but it's based on these real experiences that I have experienced.
So the problem is that you use an example of someone not answering your text message versus answering your text message. So if I send someone a text message and I never get an answer, I don't know if they received it. I don't know if they saw it. Nothing. If I do get an answer, I at least know that there was a response, even if it's from somebody else or whatever. It could be somebody saying, hey, you've got the wrong number. Or it could be somebody saying, this is it. Text messages are verifiable. If I send a text message, why on earth, if I have no way of verifying a response, would I ever suspect that there was a response?
Okay, I see what you're saying. So you're saying I don't even know that what I perceive as the answer to my prayer is even an answer to my prayer. It could have just been a random thing that happened.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It could have been a random thing that happened. But you're asking me why I believe in a God and why I'm more sure of it than unsure of it. It's because of it.
So what you're doing is you're saying, I don't have a good reason, but I believe anyway. So then the question becomes, do you care if your belief is true more than you care whether or not it's comforting?
I do. I think if my belief could be disproved, I would take that for sure.
So the problem here, Grant, is that if you care about whether or not it's true, you would not shift the burden of proof immediately after saying that you care about whether or not it's true, because you said, I do care more about whether it's true. And then you shifted the burden of proof to suggest that somebody should try to disprove your God. But if your God is unfalsifiable, nobody can disprove it. And if a claim is unfalsifiable, no one can have a reasonable justification for believing it. If your claim is untestable and unfalsifiable, you cannot have sound evidentiary warrant for accepting that it's true.
Okay. You're saying because okay, I get what you're saying.
Okay. Promise got more.
I mean, we can keep going if you want. I think it would benefit you to even listen to this call, because it makes me sad for you that you might be potentially spending time worshiping something that literally does not exist, and you haven't even found substantial reason other than, well, I think maybe it's probably more likely than not. And yet you have as much evidence for this God as me saying that I have a little tiny invisible singing starfish that is right here that, sometimes does the things I pray for, but sometimes not, kind of at the rate of chance. And you should just believe me because I think that's probably right. You need a better reason to believe if you care about believing things that are true. So I think this is something for you to go back, listen, think more on, because when you started the call with your reasons, I think you said the contingency argument, moral argument, fine-tuning argument. As you listed those off, those are some of my reasons for not believing that a God exists. So I just think you should take all of this back, and listen to the call, think about it, and maybe take some of our points
Well,
to heart.
okay. I mean, I have watched a lot of your guys' videos, and I haven't been any more convinced of that. And I do think when it comes to
Shifted the burden of
living
proof.
my life,
That's because you've shifted the burden of proof. You are expecting that you are safe in your belief until we disprove your God. So here's the question. The God that you believe in, what could anyone ever do to prove that it doesn't exist?
I mean, if we proved that Jesus didn't come back from, like, if we had Jesus's body or something, yeah, that would probably be pretty good proof that.
Okay. How would you know if we had Jesus's body?
I don't know. I don't study that.
Okay. We can't even prove that he existed, let alone whether or not we have a body. We can't compare DNA. We don't know what his DNA was. I asked you how anyone could ever disprove the God you believe in. And you went to the same thing that one of my poorer debate opponents went to, which is, if they found Jesus's body, that means he didn't resurrect, and then the God I believe in is wrong. That is absolutely one of those falsifiable in principle ideas that is absolutely not falsifiable in reality. It doesn't matter. There could be a body in Israel that we find, and maybe it's Jesus, maybe it's not. If it is Jesus's body, we have no way of proving it. And if it's not Jesus's body, you have no way of proving it's not Jesus's body. So why is it not okay for me saying, you haven't proved that every dead body laying in Israel isn't Jesus?
Okay. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I guess I think if there was maybe more evidence.
You seem to, Grant. You keep saying you get what we're saying. But this is foundational. If there's no way to prove that you're wrong, you cannot be warranted in believing that you're correct, because there's no way to tell the difference between when you're right or wrong. This is why science relies on falsifiability at its foundation.
Yeah. Well, I do think if there was some other plausible explanation for what happened to Jesus' body and the start of the apostles.
Grant, did you hear anything he just said? Because we don't even know if Jesus existed. We don't know if there is a body to be found. We have no idea. What if his body was burned too? What if he did exist and his body was totally burned? You also would you want
Historians,
every other religion to go do this then? It doesn't make any sense because you started off this call with a God that exists in general, but now the way that would disprove a God for you is Jesus's body. So really what you're hung up on is Christianity and this personal experience you've had, and it has you believing something with zero good reasons because you had a prayer answered. Meanwhile, there are kids dying of cancer, being abused at the hands of priests that are actively praying every day for that to end, and their prayers aren't being answered, but maybe one time your prayer did. I don't understand. It doesn't sound like you have a good reason for any of this.
yeah, sorry. That was a lot. And I just want to go back to, you said,
I want to go back to this, Grant. Can you
sorry?
think of a way? Can you think of a way that anyone could falsify the God that you say that you think is real?
Yes, what I was just
What is
already
it?
said.
Tell me how to falsify your God.
If there was a more plausible, well, look, this is what I'm saying is, what would falsify it is you're saying we don't even know Jesus existed. The problem is that the vast majority of historians agree that there
Grant,
was a real person.
I swear.
Following.
No, you just demonstrated that you are not being honest, because when we point out that we can't stop talking and listen, it will do you worlds of good. When we point out that we can't even show that he existed, that's a factual matter. I have no problem with the notion that he existed. I have no problem with the notion that he may not have. I understand and know very well, and have known since probably before you were born, what historians say about Jesus. I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about a falsifiable claim. When I ask you, do you have a way that someone could falsify your claim? You do not get to say, well, if there was some way for someone to demonstrate a more plausible explanation. No, that's not how falsification works. You don't get to say,
no,
it's
I'm
falsified.
saying if there was...
Stop fucking talking.
All right, go ahead.
Interrupt me one more fucking time, I dare you.
All right, I'm going to hang up because you're very rude. So you said you wanted to have a conversation. This is not a conversation. This is you're yelling at me. So goodbye.
Goodbye. Have a wonderful
I'm sure
day.
That had nothing to do with the fact that we had cornered the conversation and there was no longer, we weren't getting good answers the whole time, but
I was in mid-thought, you interrupted me, and then you call me fucking rude. No, what happened is the cognitive dissonance in your head, Grant, reached peak anxiety inducement for you. You realized on some level that you're now accepting an unfalsifiable claim, something that if you do consistently, if you use the same standard of evidence and epistemology for your God belief, you would have to believe countless gods. You would have to believe countless things, because if it's unfalsifiable, you can't tell the difference between whether it's true or not. And so while you say you care about truth, in reality, you care about protecting your cherished beliefs. And this is why, instead of answering the question about falsification, you try and say, oh, you said that we can't even prove he existed, yet historians think that he did. It doesn't matter what historians think. They can't demonstrate that this individual existed. They can only say, we have stories about him and we will view him as an actual historical figure. But you have no way of finding a body, no way of nothing. And when your brain got cornered, you looked for any way out of the conversation. So you clutched your little fucking pearls and, oh, Matt, you're just so mean. I do declare, you are just the rudest person I've never interrupted anybody quite as rude as you, sir. Good day, sir. I will stick with my good day. No. Good day. It's embarrassing.
I haven't heard the Gone with the Wind impression before. That was good though.
Yeah.
The southern
Frank
gentleman
the
coming out.